Hello, welcome back to the Calyx Services Garden. I'm Thelma, and today the topic is begonias. Well, not any begonia. We'll be talking about wax begonia, but begonia is one of those really popular plants in the garden. I think here in the Calyx Garden we have about 7 or 8 types, but today we're going to be concentrating on this one called wax begonia. The begonia family is a rather large family of ornamentals.
There are over 1,000 species and many more thousands of hybrids. In this video, we look at one of the more popular hybrids, wax begonia. Wax begonia is a hybrid.
It's a compact form of begonia, blooms throughout the year, does well in many locations, whether full shade, partial shade, or full sun. These are newly propagated stem cuttings, so the leaves are still relatively small compared to the size they will get to when they're mature. And you'll see different colors of the inflorescence. This is not as deep red as this one, and this is a nice pink. They of course come in other colors. There's whites, but for our purpose we want just really intense reddish orange and pink in the garden. So now that I've introduced you to wax begonia, let's spend a little time just telling you the growing requirements, the conditions under which the wax begonia will thrive. Let's start first with the ideal location from the point of view of sunlight
and soil condition. You may grow your wax begonia in full sunlight or in partial shade, but make sure that the soil is rich and free draining. Add a generous amount of organic matter in the planting hole and space plants between 10 to 16 inches apart to ensure good air circulation. In the next section, I'll show you how you too can propagate these beauties. Take cuttings from healthy plants that are not water stressed and that are growing well. These plants may be growing either in pots or in beds. The best time to take cuttings is early morning, and remember to sanitize your clipper as you move from one plant to another. Place the cuttings in a container of water as you proceed so that they do not become dehydrated.
So we took 3-inch length cutting of the 3 different colors of begonia, and what we're going to do is remove the excess leaves and flowers. We're preparing the cuttings for rooting and removing anything that's going to stress the cutting too much. A small cutting, 3 inches, minimum leaf area is what we're aiming for. Let's do the pink ones first. Keep them apart from the others so we do not mix them up. So it's going to be the same process for all of them. I am just going to demonstrate it with the pinks and bring you back to see all of them prepared, and thereafter we will prepare the containers for the rooting and we'll demonstrate that to you also. So almost done, just this last one. And here we are. They're still damp, so there's no need now to put them back in the water. I'm going to be using 3-inch pots and putting 2 cuttings in each pot. For the rooting medium, I'm going to use a commercial potting mix. It's sterile. To increase the drainage, I'm going to add I have half gallon of mix in this container, and I'm going to add about a quarter of this container. The mixture is essentially 3 to 1. 3 parts of the commercial media and 1 part of sand.
Next, I'll fill the containers and dampen the mixture before inserting the cuttings.
That way there are no dry pockets or no excess air pockets in the pot. All of the pots have been soaked through. You can see the water coming out the bottom.
I'm using a pencil as a dibble stick to make the holes about 1 inch deep, inserting the cuttings in the holes and pressing them gently in place to make sure they remain upright. I'm going to complete the sticking of the cuttings in the remaining pots and return with the humid chamber. I finished placing 2 cuttings into each of the 12 pots. We have 2 humid chambers, each of which are able to hold 6 of these pots. I've placed wire mesh in the bottom of the containers to allow for the free drainage of excess water out of the pots. Now that the pots are in the humid chamber, I am pouring a small amount of water into the chamber, just barely covering the bottom. This is to assist in maintaining humidity levels during the 3 to 4 weeks that the cuttings will remain in the chamber. And the last and very important step, I am covering the humid chamber, securing the lid in place. I'll repeat this process for the second humid chamber, after which I'll move both chambers to a protected location away from direct sunlight.
Fast forward 5 weeks, and here are the cuttings. They were taken out of the humid chamber about a week ago, and they seem to be looking quite healthy. Let's see what's going on with the roots. Well, I see 1 or 2 small ones, but the best way is to gently place them in water and wash the potting mix away and see what comes out. This I'm sacrificing, you understand, just because I want to see how much roots had emerged and what is really going on. Okay. So we have an intact section here where the roots have so closely bound this piece of potting soil. How the wax begonia propagates, it sends out, yeah, this is really interesting. It's a loose soil, but all of it is in a nice, compact plug, which is good for the plant in that when you transplant it, this is not going to shock as easily as if it was loosely held. This is really nice. Learn something every day. What I would do today is put in a little bit of slow release fertilizer in them. Since we've set them 5 weeks ago, they've had no fertilizer. This size container, about a half teaspoon should be sufficient.
And I'll stir it into the mix to make sure that the nutrients in the granules are released more quickly.
I'm just going to put them on this stand that gets bright indirect dappled light and keep them here for another 2 weeks or so before planting them out in the beds. And while I finish up the propagation exercise, let me just reinforce that this is a great example of how you can benefit from learning, from acquiring the skills of propagating some of the plants that you have around you. About 6 months ago, we bought 8 wax begonias at around this size. I kept them in the nursery for about a month to acclimatize. And when I say nursery, it could be in any protected area. It need not be a nursery. But you keep it in your environment in the recommended ideal location, which is indirect light and not overwatering it. Indirect light, moderate amount of water for 1 month, at which time it would get to about this size. The 8 plants, when they were this size, I planted them out in the orchid bromeliad bed, and within 3 months, I'm not kidding you, they've come to this size. So much so that I'm able now to take cuttings from all of those 8 plants. I'll do it carefully, of course, but at this point I've already propagated 24 begonias The first set are now rooted and will be ready for planting out shortly. And about 2 weeks ago, I did the second set of 12 plants. Now, in a very short period of time, you could see that you will have quite a lot of begonia plants from your initial stock, sufficient for you to establish that display bed that you see in magazines, which is our aim. Check me in 6 months' time and I will have a wonderful display bed of wax begonia. And this wraps up our first video on begonias, but of course there will be more, because given the number of begonias we have in the garden, I'd like to share the various care requirements of each different type in due course. I hope you liked this video. If you did, give us a thumbs up. Thanks for watching, and for those of you who haven't subscribed as yet, we're asking you to subscribe so that you do not miss notifications on a weekly basis when we upload other videos. So, until next video, this is Thelma in the Calyx Services Garden saying bye-bye.